I'm Marco Plouf. I actually have been doing 3D for a couple of years now, worked in a couple of studios, and I met this guy, Cédric Seo.
Hi.
Hey.
So yeah, I've been doing that for almost 15 years, trying to do my own stuff mostly, but working for companies too. But it was a real pleasure to work with this guy, maybe one of the most talented guys I met in the last 4 years. And so yeah, it was quite a good opportunity to just try to make something, because alone it's very hard to do something. But when you find someone which is very talented and you want to do something else, to create something else, and he's young, that's good. I can just manipulate it. So it's good.
You can shape me the way you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a very nice opportunity, and
Actually,
so far
I'm also going to add that you said the reasons why we actually get along together, but I think one of the reasons why it was easy for me to accept to start a company with him, it's because there's also, sometimes it's not about your interests or your way of sculpting or your art, your visual direction or whatever. Sometimes it's just connection and understandment. Understandment? Yeah, is that a word?
I don't know.
Well, we understand each other pretty well, I mean, and even you're going to see, we're going to shuffle through some of our stuff, and you're probably going to be able to say that's Cédric, that's Marco, that's Cédric, that's Marco, because we have very, very different style. Doesn't really actually it didn't make it complicated for me to accept to start a company with him, since we're different artists, because at the end, we just end up sharing all the time, right? It's also one of the reasons why people actually like to work in studios. It's mostly because you share stuff with other artists. It's also one of the reasons why I guess a lot of people are here today. It's for the sharing. So for me, it was really it was easy for me to accept and to start this whole thing. And it's so far it's actually going pretty well.
Yeah.
So maybe just to give you a little idea of where I come from personally. I don't know where to start, actually. Do I start at birth? Actually, well, you know what? When I was really, really young, I was always drawing. I've never really went to school for drawing, right? I went to school, but no really academical art class or whatever. I only doodled around, and when I was a kid, I was always creating Mega Man bosses. I think I created 150 Mega Man bosses, airport man, because at some point you just use up all the words or whatever. So I just had fun. I was always kind of concepting in a sense. But since I was in a smaller town, I didn't actually had a lot of opportunities to learn 3D. There was no 3D school in the town I was. And it took me actually a while to realize that going into a 3D art school is actually a possibility. But when I was 14 years old and I got asked, well, what do you want to do when you're older? I was well, obviously what I want to do is what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I want to create art for video game. That's what I want to do, even if it was not 3D. But I didn't have the background, and there was no school, and there was no company, and I was not informed also. I always was pretty lazy, not really looking into it too much. And so I went to work for the government instead, which is not the same thing as working in the 3D industry. So what happened is I actually realized that I had to change my life at some point, because government is a steady job, pays well, but you just die slowly. If you're an artist, I'm not gonna say that we don't need the government and everything, but as an artist, you don't want to be there for sure. And so I actually found out about this school in Montreal. Like I said, I was from a town outside of Montreal. And I went there, I learned 3D. This is 6 years ago now that I started that I learned 3D. And I was a one-year program, got out of that. I knew just enough of what I needed to actually build myself a portfolio. I actually got hired for my first job by David Giro, the guy that's going to present later tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's fun is that
Yeah, that's a good story. I think you should share that.
Yeah, it's true.
How you met him and everything. I think
Exactly.
'cause that gets asked a lot online, and people hear how to get in the industry.
It's true. It's a good
Yeah,
idea. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, actually, it starts
I
off
brought
with
you to
Jamie
mix.
here. Jamie, sorry. Jamie Labelle, he is the one that actually sent me a private message one time on Zebra Central telling me like, hey, do you want to participate in the beta testing? So I was like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm out of school. I don't have a job. I don't have a life. I absolutely want to do that kind of stuff. It's going to be fun. I'm going to meet other artists. And so I sculpted for, I think, like three weeks and a month or something like that during the beta. And at some point, you guys actually came to Montreal at the Montreal International.
we came for MIGS.
Yeah,
And then I
exactly.
hit you up and said, hey, come on out. And
Yeah.
let's hang out and get on the booth and meet people and stuff.
Yeah. And that's actually the thing. You actually made me meet David.
Yeah.
And then actually David saw my work at that point, and he was like, well, you know what? I think I have a job for you. So that's like 6 months after school, and I actually got this job at this point. So it's like I'm super grateful for Pixelogic because not only like you make the software that I use all the time, but you also kind of like gave me a job. So thank you. I guess.
Yeah, but I think it just goes to show going to events like this or something like that, you never know who you meet or who your next boss could be, and you could meet somebody there. So
Yeah,
I think it's a great example.
Totally. So you did a good job to come here, guys. So yeah, I mean, that's how I actually started, and I got my first job. Then the rest is in the industry stuff, growing, meeting people, meeting this guy here. And so yeah, that's pretty much where I come from.
Yeah, for my story, it's a little bit different, but it was hard for me, really hard, because in France it's not the same. You have to fight a lot to find a place somewhere. So, and I wanted to do that from the beginning, the real beginning. At maybe 3, 4, I just used to draw all the time, and I was full of ideas. I just wanted to do something, and it's good in France because you have a lot of medias who just from Japan, from America, from France. And just you want to do the same, but you don't have the structure to do that. You don't have school. It's different now, but when I was young, it was really different. So I had to learn by myself a lot. And I had chance also, because sometimes you need chance. And that happens, and I'm there too, so it's good. But it's a very good opportunity now to be there and do what I really want to do, so create universe and dream all the time, because it's what we want to do actually as an artist. Actually, for me, it's that. It's not a job. It's just dreaming all the time and just open a tool that allows me to do that very quickly, and I can just do something I want and
get paid for it, if possible.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's very important, for sure. If you want to do something you love, you need cash.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to drive you when you want to do something. You have to keep dreaming all the time. So it's what we try to do now both, because when we are two, it's even better because you can brainstorm all the time, and it's good challenging. It's very nice. So, and we have some pretty nice moments together. Really close.
Wink, wink. We look like a couple all the time.
Yeah, but I remember some days at THQ, because I used to have some ideas, but I'm really bad at just go forward with my ideas. So usually I sent a message to Marco, hey, Marco, I have some problem with something. So we just met in the room, in the lobby, and we just drink, and we talk a lot. And he's very good
at drinking?
Yeah,
thank you.
Also. But he's very good as... what do you say that you...
It's not français?
No. You have an idea, and he builds a lot of things around the idea, the main ideas.
Brainstorm?
No, maybe. It's an English name.
There we go.
Yeah, okay, good.
No, it's always fun. That's like one of my favorite things, is to do all this brainstorming stuff. And it's actually funny that you mentioned THQ, because like it's true that like we were meeting there all the time, and like it's sometimes like it's kind of fun, like just to think of ideas, even like if you're not going to do anything with it. Like what he was saying, the dreaming part, that's basically it. It's just like trying to come up with something, and like when you actually have like a good idea, now we have the tools to actually sculpt it and make it like real. But just the process of like thinking of something, trying to create something that comes from like within. It's always fun. It's always fun to see where you end up. And when you actually get 2 people or more that are actually open-minded, the idea is actually to multiply the ideas together and to shape it into something that like is now your idea, but like mixed with like other things that are compatible is actually pretty great, and you come up with like nice stuff. We, just to give you an idea, my first job was THQ. This is where I met him. THQ at some point got sold, so I moved to BioWare. And well, you know enough about BioWare. Furios showed you everything yesterday. And after that, I actually moved to Eidos Interactive in Montreal, where he was after THQ closed. Yeah. And we were on like this big project. Can't really talk about it like really much because it's under NDA, right? But we worked on this project, which was like, first of all, it was the most incredible thing in the world, and you're never gonna see it. All right, it was seriously the best visual, best art directed video game ever. So, we had the chance to work with like everybody there, the art director, the concept artist, and we had brainstorming sessions to actually try to create this world. It was one of the most fun experience in my
it's very important for me that because when you create something, it's not one person on the top of that. You need to share with everyone. You need to talk with everyone to make something. And at this point, I think we have to improve ourselves because mostly people, they want to do things alone, and it's not very good for me. At Eidos, it was very hard for me to do that because I was art director, creative art director, and it was fighting all the time. But once we win the first fight and we share, finally we just regroup everyone on the same room and say, okay, now what's your ideas? Let's come up with something cool. And it was just awesome. For 6 months, it was just very awesome.
Yeah, that's the power of sharing and dreaming with people, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, like following this idea, actually, the reason why we created the company is because first of all, we wanted to be able to be in a situation where we can actually work for many projects at the same time. Like it's refreshing sometimes to actually have like many things you can work on. Some artists, I know that they really like to dig deep into like one single thing that they do, and they like kind of like they can merge with it in a sense. For us, we actually really like the involvement in many places. So that's like part of the reason, but also the reason is because like we have like this bigger goal, right? We don't want to stay only like a freelancing company and be guns for hire. Our goal eventually is to be seen as creators of like universe through characters, because that's what we do. But and it's mostly Cedric's idea. I'm like the guy that's explaining it, but seriously, like he's like the big brain behind like everything.
It's not a brain, it's just, I don't know, it's just a feeling, a philosophy or something like that. I just want to create universe, create ideas, because it's good to create a character, but a character for me has no sense if there's no background, no context, nothing else. So it's always very good to come up with something in a group, in a universe. Maybe it's my French background, I don't know, but we used to... I don't want to see a character as only a unique thing. And usually, a character makes some sense when there's another one just beside, and another one, another one, another one. And you can compare them and say, okay, this one does that, this one is cool, this one, oh, he's sad. So it's very nice to make all at the same time for me. And so at the same time, you create the universe. So
it creates the story also by creating just like many characters. It kind of like creates also a background just by like seeing like how they all look the same, and you kind of like can imagine the like where they live because of like how they all look and how everything is consistent and whatever. But the point is actually, even if it's all consistent, to really have like characters that are really fun to like. You can compare them, and like you said, you know this one does that because of that, this one does that because of that, because it's obvious, because they have like really like obvious like shapes and visual language. And it's kind of like also something that is really good to do in the video game industry, because in video games, like to be honest, like I think that there's a lot of video games that all the characters look the same, and like when you see them from afar, it's like, what's that one? Normally, you notice something by looking at it from afar, so When you actually explore more in shapes, you actually get this like really, really big originality between all the characters, and it makes it like more appealing to the eye and more readable easily. So I guess, you know what, I think we should shuffle through a couple of images because there's a lot to say about like everything. Oh, and by the way, we actually are gonna end up doing like demos at the end. Like right now, it's really just like presenting what we do and whatever, but we have this whole thing set up to show you like a couple of ZBrush techniques, ZBrush tricks, and all that stuff. There's a lot of personal things in here. There's a lot of client work also. There's a lot of low res. There's a lot of only high res. Generally, I like to do the low res only when I actually am told to do low res, because I don't like that, but it's my job, so whatever. So I always end up just like playing around with ZBrush, like the fun part. So you're gonna see like a lot of high res in there. A lot of organic and mechanical stuff, like this. If you go back, the wasp thing. That's like the latest thing that I did, latest thing that I posted online. And it was clearly just like, I don't know, doing a mech, doing something hard surface, and because it's been a while that I did some hard surface stuff also, but that I can show. Because when we were working on Deus Ex, we did a lot of hard surface stuff, but Deus Ex is not out yet, so not many things to show about that.
Actually, what I said just some time ago, it's what I did for this project. It was a very nice project at THQ, and it was just free for all. We could do anything we want, and that was very good. For example, it was, for me, my goal was to make one character in a day, just because it's good to not to focus too much on something, just to release your character. It's good to take some distance from your character. Usually you do something very good, because what we see now in the industry, it's people are just very close to the character, and they just forget everything else. And for me, it's a huge problem in this industry. We have to, because it's so easy now to put some details everywhere, it makes no sense. We have to take some distance and see a character as a story, as something different. It has to be more poetic, I don't know, something different. We have to feel something when we do a character now. So it's what I try to do with this lineup of character. And it was very fun, because actually when you do that, it's even better for you as an artist, because you feel like you create something. You don't do something, you create something. And at a point, it's what we need, because if we do that, it's because we need something. It's my case. So, and I want to dream. It's what I said to Martin. I love you, Martin. You are a great artist. And when I open up ZBrush and I start a character, I just want to watch a movie. I create my own movie, and I have good feelings when I do that, and that's it. At the end, most of the time, I delete the character. Just the sensation of creating something, it's very nice. So we have to keep that in mind. It's not a product. It's something else.
Sometimes it's kind of scary to actually go through like this like gauntlet of like creating, like it feels like such a big word, right? But I think the mentality is really just like well, you know, like Furio said yesterday, like just open up your computer, like just do it, and 3 brush strokes inside the software, and it just like you're gonna continue afterwards. That's basically it. You just need to go in that bubble, and once you're in, it's just easy. It's like talking in public. You kind of stress a little bit at the beginning, but when you're in, it's like, okay, well now it's easy. Okay, I just needed to do the first steps, go through and when you're creating, it's super easy to be actually that's kind of like my problem also sometimes is when I create, I'm very, very critical of my work. I'm extremely critical of my work.
Yeah, it's a pain. Every day I have to.
Yeah, he has to remind me to not be like that, so it's kind of hard though. But I mean, even if it doesn't come naturally, I mean, you have to just find the zone to feel comfortable with what you're doing and accept that it's not going to be the best work. It's not going to be your best work, but it's going to be just the experience that's going to be fun. And every time you're going to do it, you're going to gain experience points. You're going to level up, and at some point, you're going to be satisfied of your work, and you're going to become an awesome artist just by simply doing it. It's kind of like I get like a lot of people emailing me asking me for tricks and whatever, and it feels like a shitty answer to say, but my answer is always like just do it, just do it, just do it. Put your heart into it. If you like it, you're gonna do it. You're gonna continue doing it. So you just need to like that stuff, and if you like it, the rest is gonna come with effort and time. Do you wanna like do a little demo for? Concepting stuff?
Concepting stuff, yeah.
Yeah?
So just to present you some stuff I did on Nova. Well, do I have to say the name? I think I'm not allowed to say that. Okay,
no.
It's a code name anyway. So.
It's too late now. It's like out there.
It's just a name.
Yeah.
But we don't care.
On a project.
It was a... Where's the pen? Oh. It was a very nice game. It was a very nice game because at the beginning we have to do everything from scratch, and we have we had to create a full world, and it's very exciting. It was very exciting for me to create something from the beginning with art direction, which was so different. But actually, it's not characters from that game.
Yeah.
But
before
when
the
you work
lawyers
on
start calling, those are not from the game.
No, because
they're just.
Usually when you start working on something you really like and you go home and you want to do stuff, it's in your brain. So you do exactly the same, not exactly the same, but if there are some things you just redo. And it was a very good match for me, actually. So also it's a good way to see how I work. So usually I work at the same time on several characters. So it helps me to just not focus too much on the character, on details. So I just want to do something different, and usually it helps a lot to do something very different. So you create, naturally, you create different archetypes. So it's kind of nice, even for you, because you don't get bored too quickly. It's very nice. So you can sculpt for a day and much more than that. Usually when I start something, it could take a week. And that's why I never really change the way I work, because I feel very comfortable. And at the end, you're very proud of yourself because you created something, you create a group, you create a universe, and after that you put words on that, you put skills, you put many things. And if you want to show something, because at the end, for sure, if you want to present something and you want to work for a company, you put some details. But at least you have solid bases. So it works. So usually, these are some examples. So as you can see, it's really different. So sometimes it's a biped, sometimes not. Sometimes it's just very abstract. But it's a good way to do something and to force you to do something different. It was the same for these kind of guys. And always to push forward against the sensation, it's good to just duplicate one, make a very quick pause, and you have a feeling. Because when you want to sell something, usually you need a feeling. That's why Furio is very good, actually, because when you look at his concepts, there's a context at the background. It's in pose, he does something, the character does something, and you feel a story. You don't see a stand pose character. It's a real character in a real world. And when you look at his concept, it's in life. And it's what, I don't know, for me, it's really what I want to see.
It kind of feels like Furio paid us to say those things. No, it comes from the heart.
So different example, once again. So you can just change a little bit of stuff. So it's something I really do very often also. I duplicate the character, and I love morphing. So I love when organic stuff just change. You move, you change.
Evolve.
I really love Dean Simons, which is a very nice writer. And I like this concept where the human being can evolve. If he wants to survive, he has to evolve in an organic way of looking. So I'm really inspired by Dean Simons. Same for that. When you create a character, it's good also to think of behavior. So why not a combination of two different creatures? and you play around with that idea and you do something different. And after that, you think of, oh, it could move. And sometimes also you create some characters who are very important, like main characters. And sometimes, especially in a game, when you go in a village, for example, you see some, what's the name of that? NPC, non-playable character. And it's good also to make these kind of characters, because it's a true life. If you want to create something real, you have everything in the world. So it's good sometimes to just do these kind of villagers or insects, or something else.
You know, the funny thing, I didn't even see those things yet. You kept it away from me.
And I love creating something really mechanical.
It's like organic but mechanical. The same way that the anatomy is mechanical in itself, right?
Yeah, I like when things move differently, and it's what I try to do with this one. So yes, actually, if I do an example of the best thing for me to work, it's like that. So you create a sphere, you duplicate the sphere. Change them in Dynamesh. Very low. It's good to have very low subdivision. Yep. Just keep them in the same subtool. And just you play around with the shape and you move. Just stay in Dynamesh. Keep quite far from your character. And with the snake hook in Dynamesh mode, you just play with the shape and the anatomy. It doesn't have to look like a human being or whatever. You don't care. You just move, change. It's probably the best feature I used in ZBrush. It's Dynamesh, because it's very close to what I really want to do as an artist. I just want to play with the mud and don't have the restriction of polygon and all the worst thing we had a long time ago, because I have a background in 3ds Max, and you just have to think of technical stuff. But in ZBrush, it's all about organic, it's all about ideas. Actually, it's not technique, it's just ideas. So you put in your ideas in the front, and you really, I think it's like a bridge. Thanks to ZBrush, we can just make your ideas alive. And for me, it was very good. So yeah, you can just play around with a character, and when you get bored, or maybe you just don't know what you do, so you just change, and you do something else. So it's a good way to just come up with new ideas. Just snake hook. You don't need a lot of brushes. There's no, I don't know, magic brush or magic alphas or magic madcap. It's all about just play. If it's ugly, it's ugly. You don't care. Sometimes you're just very far from your character and you do something and you see something very nice. Could be just a pattern sometimes, and you keep going. And if you're not happy with what you have, you can just remove, delete them, and Dynamesh again.
Do you want to actually talk about how you actually try to keep things dynamic when you actually create the silhouettes and everything? Because that's something you actually told me that you taught me that I actually found pretty cool. Is what's in your head when you actually do the first steps? When you use the snake hook, it's just a tool, so you can do anything you want. But the idea behind it, when you explore the shapes, you still try to keep something not logical with the shapes, but try to keep a feeling with the shapes that you create, dynamic or
After it's just personal for the dynamism of a character, because I really like when things are very dynamic, when it feels like it moves in a way. I like the flow, I like curves, but it's very personal for sure.
But it's still the kind of stuff that's in the back of your head when you actually create, right? Because I mean, it's different for like every artist. What's really in the back of your head when you create? Like, what are you using? What are you? I don't know. Like, are you using reference? Are you actually like just creating something out of the ordinary? Do you have rules when you create stuff? And technically, I think everything. Well, like you said, everybody has a different way of like actually doing it. But the more you do it, the more you actually kind of realize, oh yeah, I'm always looking up for that when I actually do a concept. I'm always trying to have this thing nailed down, this thing solid, because the more you actually create, the more you realize what makes a character not lovable, but like the reason why you like a character that you did is because of those reasons. So you repeat like kind of like those paths to actually get something good, and it's kind of in a sense it's kind of like contradictory to the idea of like being free of like everything, but it's because it's kind of like both at the same time all the time. Like there's a part of you that has to be free and explore things that you don't, and there's a part that has to be like automatic and knowing what it's doing and knowing that it's going to do something that looks good. So it's always like those two things, and I think it's it's a good moral because it's not extreme. It's like balanced between like what is important and what is not important, right? There's nothing that's like, oh no, never do that, or I guess I should not say never because my point is that there's no extremes. But what I mean is that you're going to try to be free. You're going to try to actually have some stuff that's consistent, and you're going to try to marry both of them to actually create something good. So it's a very chaotic process in a sense. That's the reason why we call ourselves Chaos Masons, by the way. Wink.
Plug.
Yeah, plug, exactly. we have business card right here, by the way.
I like how you set it up. It's all nice and pretty, too. You open
Not
the box
bad, eh?
halfway.
Yeah, it's because I'm an
Nice.
artist.
Yeah.
I actually drew a little concept of how it's supposed to look like already. All prepared out, man.
Did the pre-layout ahead of time.
Yeah. Do you want to add something, or you like to hear me talk?
No, I dream. I don't
Yep.
care. I don't want to.
Cedric's dreaming now.
I'm
All right.
playing. You talk.
Yeah, okay,
It's good
sure.
to me.
Hey, you know what, actually? We are really, really open to questions at any time. Like, we were not actually expecting to just answer questions at the end. So, we're two. It's the best moment. It's the best setup to actually ask question and have something at the same time. So, yep, well, there we go. That's what I wanted.
Oh.
It's,
What?
the question was...
How does he switch through sub-tools
yeah,
so
well,
quickly?
no, I know. It's just, okay, can the people on the stream hear him? Or he has to speak
well,
in the
I
mic?
just repeated, but here, I'll give you the mic.
Okay, just repeat in the mic.
So he
Okay.
wants to know how is Cedric switching between the sub-tools
It's-
so quickly?
It's just the arrow
The arrow
on the
keys.
keyboard, so you can just switch,
Up and down.
yeah, up and down. It's a very nice way to do it, actually.
Yeah, well, the point of having all the sub-tools together like this is really to
You have
just
to
like
keep
quickly
You have to be in
shuffle.
solo mode for sure. So you have to just see the active one, and you can just switch whatever you want, whenever you want.
And then, Cedric, I know a lot of people were excited about your material here. It
He's
seemed-
everywhere now. The material. I think he was on the computer.
This is
on
what
the-
you used in the contest, right? This
Yeah.
material?
Yes.
So I was getting tweeted everything. Well, I'm not tweeted, but we were getting tweeted here. And then, is this material available for people or for people to have? Do you have it anywhere?
You
they
can do
do?
it now. He's on your computer, so you are free to do whatever you want with that.
Because the people wanted that material.
I can share everything anyway. So
See? They want your material. So here's a question from Twitter. Personal preference, either getting emotionally invested in a character or detaching yourself from it and look at it objectively. What do you normally do when you're working?
I think you're better to ask this question. It's
Yeah.
basically like, okay, I get really emotionally involved when I do characters, and I'm learning to actually be a little bit more distant because
away.
I mean, when you want to explore and when you really want to be free, if you attach to what you do, you're going to just force yourself to actually make it good, and it's going to stop you. It's going to stop your creativity. Or actually, for me, that's what it does. I think for a lot of people, that's what it does. So you really need to not care about what you're doing, and you're going to notice that you're going to come up with like stuff that you like even more. It always happened to me. Like for example, like when I worked in the industry, it was really easy to like what I was doing because the concepts was, well, sometimes I did the concept, sometimes, and sometimes like I was provided a concept. But since it was not like my project, my personal stuff, it was really easy for me to actually end up with something that I liked. Because it's like, oh, it's not for me. It's just for fun, right? Just do that and this and whatever, and you always end up like liking the stuff at the end. But when you actually do your own personal stuff, you have to kind of like set yourself in another zone to make sure that you don't get attached too much, or else it's gonna backfire on you. Still, you might come up with some good stuff, but you might actually have a rough patch. Like for example, the last character that I did, the wasp character, the yellow and black robot. This character is something that I got attached to like midway. It was really just a character just for fun, like a little blocking, exploring stuff. Started like to just like polish a little bit, and then at some point I really started to like it, and I was like, oh, all right, shit, it's gonna make it like harder to finish the process. So it's I don't know. It has to be balanced. You have to like it a little bit still, but don't get attached too much.
Something I usually do also, I didn't really reply to the question. You did it? Good? Perfect.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, because to get faster, because it's good to go fast, because if you don't want to spend too much time on technical stuff, you have to organize yourself before starting something. So it's something I usually do. I do a couple of characters or a couple of things like this one. It's a brush. Oh, where is brush? Brush. Extremities brush. So you can make some extremities because for me it's very painful to do that because you have 5 fingers and it's very long and painful. So it's good to make a kind of a library. You don't have to keep it, the style, but at least you have the geometry, and you can play with that. So it's what I did, actually. I use a brush, I put the ends, and after that, you can just make a dynamesh and rearrange the connection. And if you want to change the style, it's easy. You just have to smooth. Or if you want to add a finger, you can just duplicate, isolate the finger, very done. You show everything, both. You move the finger. It has to be a very organic process when you work. Oops.
This actually makes me think of something that I get asked a lot when I teach in schools. People are afraid that some tools are like cheap ways of like working, and I think it's like completely the wrong idea. I mean, there's principles that might be cheatings, but like tools are not cheating. Some people think using reference is cheating. Like like a lot of students when they start, they think reference is cheating, and it's like, yeah, well, you don't have everything in your head right now. Like thinking that you have everything in your head is crazy. You're gonna need like reference for a while before you really understand everything about like the subject itself. So of course, like we always use reference and that kind of stuff. Well, Cedric right now is not using reference because it's like more like a process of exploration. You can use reference to actually just look at it, have like an idea of maybe or get inspired, but that's not the point right now. In terms of like rendering and studying, of course you need like those reference. Now talking about other shortcuts, using like IMMs like that or that kind of stuff, it's really a way to really go quickly to create something. If you want to study something, which is very, very important to have this like academic level of study of like a subject, well, of course you have to go through the whole process and really like, you start from your sphere, you block out your shape, you like if you do an anatomy, then you like study the anatomy, you sculpt it, you restudy, you start again, you do it a couple of times until you actually understand it more and you're comfortable with it. When you do those studies, yes, of course, you do everything from A to Z. But when you're comfortable with something, when you know you can do it, and you know that now your point is just to actually get to an idea, get to a finished product, I say use whatever you want. Use scans, use IMMs, could bash the hell out of your stuff. It's fine. I mean, if the idea is to create, take everything. I mean, artists, like analog artists, I mean, they don't restrict themselves to like a medium to actually go into museums and stuff. I mean, you can end up doing art with like styrofoam plates, so it's fine. In ZBrush, it's not styrofoam plates, it's more cool stuff, but it's still, use anything you want. That's what I'm trying to say.
So
just make sure that you know the legit way to do it also just for yourself.
That's a great question from happened to work out on Twitter asking about reference. So April's asking, what type of references do you all use, human, animal, as it seems you all silhouettes have very dynamic and out of the norm. So what are you using for references?
Oh, Jesus. Do you have a quick answer for that? Because mine is kind of long.
Because it's really different for me. At the beginning, I used to use a lot of references, but now I use the opposite way. So I do something, I try to find a shape I really like, and it's inspired me in something, and sometimes I see an animal, a monkey or something like that, and only at this stage I used to take some references to help me to make some details or anatomy or stuff like that. But I don't really want right now to start from a references. It's not something I really like.
No, that's really personal at that point.
It depends also the context, because if you're in a company, for sure it's different. I'm talking about my personal stuff. But we're in a company, and we have to create a concept. You always have something. You always have a line of something, or an idea, or just a picture. So you start from that. For sure, it depends.
Actually, I'd say, I think if my way of using reference lately, I've noticed that it's more into like, I'm going to see one image, and I'm going to see something in the image, like a part of the image. And I don't mean like that square in the image. I mean like I'm going to see like a shape of something. It can be like a reference about anything. Even if I'm like doing a robot, it could be like the shape of a well that has like something like an ice curve or whatever. And I can just see that and I'm like, okay, well, you know what? That's actually pretty cool. It doesn't have anything to do with what I'm doing, but there's this thing in that picture that actually I realize that I like, and I'm going to use like that thing as like a reference maybe. So it's like seeing stuff, even if it's not like appropriate in a sense. Like you can see like a lamp, and you just think the lamp has like such a cool shape, and there's just like, well, that's going to be the head of my next robot. So that's like using reference, but like in a really weird like way, I guess. It's like a curveball, I sense. But I tend to use reference really literally when I do studies. When I try to like do observation sculpting or try to learn how something works, right? Reference for me is more like inspiration generally, it's not too figurative. Is there another question by any chance?
Well, they want to know, let's see, there is another question here we got here. Cedric, for your hard surface, you have a very unique touch and feel that's very vivid. Any specific techniques to help achieve this result?
Not really.
I just do.
I thought I knew what you were going to say, but...
Well, what did you think he was going to say?
Well, I mean, last time you told me that you really like to always think organic, even if you know that in the end it's going to be a mechanical robot. Like,
yeah, exactly. For example, this one, it could be a mechanical guy if I want to.
Turn him into mechanical.
Okay, I can do that, but you have to speak.
All right. Do you want me like to announce like what you're saying and do like during the sculpt stuff? Like, oh no, he's using that brush. Oh my God, he's probably gonna do this thing now. Look, no, that's not what he did.
They spend a lot of time together, apparently.
Just kind of, a little bit too embarrassing, actually. The thing is,
actually, we use a technique, but I don't know if we're going to talk about that now or maybe at the workshop. But we use
maybe just at the workshop. Little secrets here.
Because as a 3D concept artist, we have to find some way just to find some shortcut in a point, because we have to deal with, in a company, you have 2D concept artists, and they are very fast. They can draw things very easily, and they can do a bunch of things. And for us, if we want to compete, it's not competition, but we just want to express ourselves also. So we have to find some shortcuts. So we all the time, we just try to find different way to do that.
Different little pipelines, little tricks.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like super dumb, but you just never thought about it, and they were like, okay, well, that saves like half a day just by doing it that way, and it's like the same result at the end. So we've got a little tricks here and there, like one that we actually discovered really new, and we decided to make the workshop about this little technique here. So we're and it can make, it helps us to do like a full character rendered in Keyshot in 4 hours. Like kind of like the same amount of time like with the sculpt off and everything, but sometimes if you're really in the zone and you don't really have to talk or explain, I tested it, 4 hours, and it works really well. From blocking, polish, to rendering and
You have an example, no?
compositing. Well, I mean, that's how I did the wasp, but the wasp I spent more time on it because the polish is very, very, very high. But yeah, I mean, like later when I'm going to grab the computer, I can show the example of what it is. For the people that bought tickets for the workshop, it was in the package already sent. It's an example of a character that we did really quickly. He did the blocking and some of the polishing. I finished up the polishing and did the Keyshot stuff afterwards. But so yeah, in the idea of like doing the stiff mechanical like he's doing right now, you see like the shapes, they're there. The shape didn't really change. It's just like the in quotes rendering of the shape, right? And not rendering in sense of like the render button, but rendering in terms of like treatment of the surface. That's the only thing that really changed for us when we actually want to do something that's mechanical. It doesn't have to be like necessarily like industrial looking or all square and like the way that like robots are actually made in real life. For us, it's kind of fun to actually keep things really organic, right? Because I mean, we don't know where the future is necessarily coming. I mean, you don't know, maybe at some point there's going to be like a physical explanation why now things that look actually more organic and round are actually more appropriate for robots and stuff. So we like to go in that direction anyway and to say, you know what, we're going to create this future ourselves. We're going to make this way of, we're going to use those shapes and we're going to create robots this way. And you know what, to be honest, I mean, it's not like it was never done. I mean, you look at some artists in the past and you can see that they already started to explore a lot of like organic venues, even if you end up doing like mechanical things, hard surface things. Like I said, it's just a treatment that's really different for us.
So this is a good question then, Ty, on what you're talking about from Fernando online. Do you make previous 2D sketches for shapes, or you just directly improvise in ZBrush? And you got 35 minutes.
Personally, it's more in ZBrush because I'm a 3D guy. I tried to draw a long time ago and I just suck. So I just decided to, I visualize in 3D. And for me, it was a relief to get ZBrush because I could actually move around and play with the shapes. And I think it's a good way to make your dreams alive, because when you want something, when everything is in 3D, it's not 3D, it's just a world. But you can just feel it. It's just like you play with the mud. In 2D, just for me, it's flat. I can do nothing with that. And for me, it helps me to have some ideas and to find some inspiration, the 3D, just to play around. I would like to do it in real. It would be very fun, but not yet. But actually, ZBrush is very good for that.
I'm not as comfortable as Cedric for blockings and stuff, and I sometimes end up doing little silhouettes just to explore like the bigger shapes. But once I actually have to break inside the silhouette and like break it apart, for me, I'm more comfortable in 3D also. So I'm just gonna redo the silhouette real quick in ZBrush and then start to actually draw like the different like parts inside and then go on with like polishing and everything.
You got 35 minutes. I just wanted to let you know too, so you know the time.
How much time left?
35 minutes.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
35.
it's your turn.
You want me to show some stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there we go.
Cedric. So, Marco, I'm going to throw this question at you so you can think about what you're going to demo, because I know you're going to show some hard surface.
Yep.
Wayne was asking, particularly to yourself, in your hard surface, how do you make the panel lines or the components fit together?
Well, that's the first thing I was going to show.
Boom!
Huh?
That's like the fourth time you've answered a question that's already there.
I can see the future, man.
You don't need me.
No, I need you. It's like right here, I need you.
Thank you. Tearing up right now. Tearing up.
It's so easy to tear you up, man. All right. Let me set this thing up. So for me, the demonstrations are going to be more like practical. It's more like on the polishing and, well, the first phase of polishing and the last phase of polishing. I'm just going to set up my little shortcuts here. That's something you really have to do is you do have to create your own URL and shortcuts because there's ways you can cut into milliseconds and they add up at the end of your day. So, yeah. So I brought a couple of models to show those things. I don't know which one I'm going to use. If I want to show the panel things, okay. Yeah, I'm going to use these ones there. Okay, so for those who haven't seen this character, this is the wasp character that I did.
Top row.
Woo! This is a decimated version because I just wanted to actually be able to move around really easily with it. But if I go too quick, you see you start to see the decimation and everything. But just imagine the surface normally is really smoothed out with H polish and everything. But yeah, so the idea behind this character was just to have a certain visual language, obviously triangles, and I actually just started from this little guy here. So the same way that Cedric just showed you, how he does his blocking and everything, I pretty much do the same thing. You see, my style is really different, so I end up with a different kind of visual language. But just to show you a couple of how I did a couple of pieces, the panel thing was talking about. There's there's to do things really clean, in a really clean manner, and there's ways to do things more polished and whatever. You're going to use one in a context and the other one in another context. For example, sometimes I use the long way home to actually do something that looks really highly polished, and this is probably when I do stuff for the industry. If you do stuff for cinematics, it needs to be double, triple the polish, so make sure it's super clean. And when I do something for myself that's more like a concept, I'm going to try to find shortcuts instead. So I'm going to show you two ways to do the same thing. So I'm going to take this little piece here, this one. I'm just going to create it from the blocking. So you see it's still here. The first thing that I do is actually I just remove it from this piece here, but I still keep the existing blocking. So I just duplicate. Then you take the new shape here. You just mask it. You go in masking here. You hide what is not masked. Actually, the thing is that I don't even know where the buttons are because I have my own shortcuts now, so I kind of lost them.
Visibility.
Visibility. It's in visibility A. Okay, there we go.
For high points. Yeah.
See, for me it's just F. So it's really quick. It's quicker. Once you got this thing here, you can actually just make everything else disappear. You don't need to be really clean.
You have a question here from the floor while you're doing that?
Yeah, sure. You can ask at the same time.
Hello. I would like to know if you have to deliver this piece for cinematic animation, how many time would you take to take all the retopology and texturing in all the pieces from this concept part to the delivering?
To do what do you mean to also
many
poly model it for cinema?
Yes.
I don't do that. It's boring. I don't like to do that kind of stuff.
It's the hard part.
It's the only thing that the only contracts that I refuse, it's when it's that thing because I'm just and I just don't like that thing. I don't know. I mean, I like to like my job, So I'm going to accept the contracts that I know that I'm going to like. And also, it's for the client. I mean, if I end up like doing something that just is so boring for me, the client is not going to get a good thing at the end. It's not going to get a good result. So it's better for both parties for me to just say like, well, you know what? I'm going to stick with like the tools that I like to use. So I actually don't really do it.
Oh, cool.
But texturing, for the texturing part, that's super easy. Quixel Suite. It's pretty cool to actually do textures. It goes really well. This is what I use now. And but now I'm talking really about like video game production and cinematic production, right? I'm not talking about concept, because concept I'm just gonna like slap some textures in KeyShot and just like do a little bit of comp over it, and it just gets the idea done. So like this piece here, what I'm actually gonna do is, this is where I wanna get. There's many ways to do that, but like let's say I actually hid everything. I deleted what was hidden. I'm just gonna make sure I keep just like this part of the surface here. Hide, delete. I'm gonna actually make it flat with a clip brush. I'm going to use group loop, and group loop, this is my little UI thing here. Group loop here in geometry normally will actually just like smooth the corners by adding loops. So once this is done, you can add an extra step that will make it cleaner, which is to Z-remesh. So now you have a clean topology. Or you can decide to not use as a remesh also. You can just stick to this. And what you can do now is, this is my little shortcut. I take the transpose line here. I hold Control and I click on the shape. What it does is that it actually hides just like the borders here, because there's like polygroups, right? Oops. There you go. And once this is masked, just pop it out like this here. And after that, I simply Dynamesh this thing. That's a little bit too low. Let's try like this. There we go. You can remove the polygroups now, and now you have your shape. So just imagine, like without explaining it, it's a matter of like 5 seconds. So now you have like this piece that you can actually start sculpting on. The point is to get to this amount of polish. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use like the quick way, which sometimes is not highly polished, but it's good enough for how far we're going to see this thing from the camera. So I just like clip it like this, edge polish the corners so that they're a little bit rounder, where I made them too hard surfaced. Once you got this piece here, well, it's like pretty much done. I mean, you subdivide it. Sometimes what I do is I go in deformation, use polish. It's just going to polish do an overall polish. You can lower the subdivision if you see polish is not strong enough. You see it kind of like rounds every corners. If you think it's like too blobby now, edge polish just a little bit more, like this. And you do whatever you want afterwards. Simply like do things like this here. And whatever, I don't know. You can create like this is a little trick I use sometimes. I use the clay brush to do bevels. I don't really do bevels. I like more like round corners. But if you really want to do like a hard bevel, this is a nice trick here. Lazy mouse. You use clay. And clay is very, very stable. Just to work around the corners like this. There we go. And for the rest, I don't know, you just go with edge polish and you just finish the corners. There you go. And it's like that's the quick way of doing like the polishing, because it's not, you're looking for up close and it's not polished really. I mean, it's all jagged. The width of this bevel is not the same everywhere, but for the purpose of it, it's good enough. I mean, the wasp character is all of that, and overall, in my eye, it looks polished enough to look like a real solid polished job. But the idea is that it's all shortcuts to actually really work faster. Like for example, to say how much sometimes I actually work dirty, like this piece here, the tibia. Is that tibia in English, that part? Yeah. Tibia, okay, there we go. Like this part is one piece. Oops, oop-a-lie. Wait, there we go. Like that's all like one piece just sculpted in. Well, but that's just like creating shapes and using DAM standard to create like some kind of like bevel and add little alphas here and there. But the idea is that when you do concept, even if you want it to look polished at the end, you have to find ways to do it really, really quickly. So with that idea, I'm going to show like the same thing, but a little bit differently. Well, actually a little bit differently. I'm going to show you like the highly polished way of doing stuff. Like this is another piece on the character. So you see like this part of the chest. Just to go a little bit more quickly, I'm going to just grab this piece here that I prepared in advance, and I'm going to actually cut this shape and make it high res like this. And you see this one is already cleaner. This piece is already cleaner. It took me a little bit more time though, but that's the point. If it needs to be that clean, well, you need to know how to do this trick too. So I'm going to show you something else. I use a slice curve. Slice curve. I actually have a shortcut for that also, so I'm not sure. There you go. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the silhouette of this shape. I'm going to stay in polygroup because when you're in polygroup, you actually see where the lines are cut because they are being given a new polygroup. To do the bevel thing, I'm just pressing Alt. To be honest, I don't really understand how the tool works. I just like tried, and my brain understands how it works, but I cannot explain like how the beveling works actually. And that's actually a trick that Paul told me because I asked you the question and you said the same thing. Just use it. You're going to see your brain's going to understand. It's genuine. It's made to be not explained and just like used. So I'm going to continue doing this. Now, once I actually cut everything around it, I should be able to just hide this part. If those things are still showing, it's not a problem. You just auto polygroup it. It's gonna, since it's separated, it's gonna give it another one. You click this one, and I actually have a shortcut to delete everything that's hidden. Normally, you go in geometry, modify geometry, delete hidden, but mine is a Control-Shift-X. Just removes everything that's off screen. Once I have this piece here, I'm just going to need to flatten it a little bit because like this is going to be too hard to repair, right? So I want to actually start from something that is flatter. So once again, I'm going to switch back to the clip brush, the clip curve, which will actually flatten on the line instead of slicing in the geometry. So now this is like a little bit more clean. I'm going to do the same thing for this angle here. There we go. You see here it's not clean yet, so I'm just going to use planar with the Alt button just to flatten to the level of the first normal that I actually touched. There we go. See, that's going to be clean enough. Now what I want to do is I'm going to use ZRemesh to have a clean topology. I'm not really sure how much I need. So let's test with 1,000.
Press Alt.
Is what?
Press Alt.
Oh yeah, press Alt. Furio said it yesterday, you gotta press Alt. I never do. Because it does that, because like it's in my UI, so what it does, it's actually, it hides my UI instead. So if you wanna use Alt, you actually go in Geometry, Edge Loop, and you use, no, not Edge Loop, ZRemesh, and you use Alt on that button here. There you go. So you see, that's gonna be all right. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna create a shell. And to create the shell, well, I just use panel loops. So panel loops, I always use those options, or almost. 100, minus 100 or 100 in elevation, 0, 0 polish, 1 loop, and I just test with the thickness. And you see that thickness is gonna be good enough. The next thing I'm going to want to do is I actually want to have every art edge on a different polygroup on that,
I created, just to let you know, we talk about sharing also, so I created a script just able to change all the parameters in once. It's what I used on my UI, personal UI, customized UIs later,
Yep.
before. And so we could share it, of course.
So you wrote
Could
a
be very
Z
useful.
script. You wrote a Z script to do
Yeah.
one action.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because it could belong
Right.
to change all the, because when you do a character, a mechanical character, you have a lot of plates everywhere, so you
Yeah.
just want to make it very, very smooth and fast.
Yeah.
So I decided to create a script for that.
Yeah, you
And
could
I'm not using it.
Yeah, I don't know why.
you could also make a macro too for those out here and there too. Just like that's pretty much what Cedric did. So macros is also a great resource too.
So at that point here, what I did is, you see, I just used the angles to actually attribute new polygroups. So new polygroups by angles. Where is it? Yep.
Group by normals. Group by normals.
Group by normals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so what it does this here. And you see, I'm going to want to have like a hard corner here. So that's why I've put two different polygroups here and here. And now what I can do is I can actually use polish by polygroup. Polish by group. And you see, it kind of like makes it like all flat here, but actually keeps like your hard edge. Now, you're not going to want to have this happening everywhere, because like you see here, it actually made it like kind of like flat. Not flat, but round. So you can actually just like hide parts, mask your, blur your mask, redo the same thing. Actually, once again, I have my own shortcut, so I'm just going to use it here, polish by groups. There we go. And you can actually just go by hand, move it a little bit like this, polish by group again. This makes it like cleaner in a sense. Once you got that, there's many things you can do now actually. You can previs with dynamic subdivision. For me, it's just Alt-D. Like this is what it's going to look like if I subdivide. You can use the creases to tell him, well, you know what, between polygroups, I just want the shape to not smooth for like a certain amount of level and then start to smooth afterwards. So I go in Dynamesh here, dynamic subdivision, and I'm gonna crease. I'm actually gonna use my shortcuts again.
Yeah, use your shortcuts if you have to.
Yeah. Because I kind of like, I want to make sure that people know like where to get it, but at the same time, it's so convenient to have your own shortcut. It's a good reason why to actually use them.
Yeah. It's in geometry crease right now is what he's playing with the creasing people, just so you know. He's creasing.
So I created the creases, that's the dotted lines, and I told them for the two first subdivision, you do not smooth, and then you smooth afterwards. So if I lower it down to 1, and I just like go out and go in, you see that now it's actually more blobby. But sometimes it's the look you want, so you just have to find like the magic like level, and it's gonna look fine. Once you're in that stage, before you actually make it real subdivisions to sculpt in it, there's like extra stuff you can do that's always fun. I like to actually just hide everything but the edge. And oh no, that's the old trick. The new trick is to use the Z modeler. So for me, Z modeler is Alt Q. I just put it there, and afterwards I will just like go on an edge, use insert, and just like add lines here and here, and then I will go inside a shape, Q mesh, polyloop, and push inside to actually create the some kind of like indent or whatever. Other things that I like to do at this point is I actually like to use this other little tool here in the brushes, curve tube. So curve tube, it does this here. But if you actually go on like where two polygroup meets, and you just use it and you press shift, it's actually going to follow the line here. So that's pretty cool. If you want it to go like all the way around, there's probably a lot of tricks to do it, but my trick is to simply make sure that, like to reset the polygroups. Now my creases are there, so I can change a polygroup and it's fine. So I'm just gonna change the, I'm just gonna change the angle until I get the same polygroup all the way around, which is probably going to be hard. I think the best way, actually, since it's going to be hard to find an angle, I'm simply going to duplicate this shape here. I'm going to go in that shape. I'm going to take this. I'm going to delete everything. Now it's actually doing it on the outskirts of this shape here. I'm going to delete what's hidden right now. I think it's already deleted. Oh, no. There we go. Delete that. And then I have, in 2 subtools, I have the results that I wanted to do. So now just make sure like this is like the good thickness, and it looks good, and it's actually going to be pretty much that for like the borders. If you look at the character here, like I did it like at a lot of places, like those little like tubes thing right here, and it's done the same way.
Can I add a trick there for you?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so go to the stroke palette, just so everyone knows what he's doing, right? He made another subtool. You actually necessarily don't have to, right? So when you're using that brush, it's along a curve. So if you open the curve options, there's curve functions. Open up the curve functions one. So you see right there it says frame mesh. You see it says border, polygroup, creased edges.
Hi.
That's actually what that curve thing is looking at when you hold shift. So by default, we have all 3 turned on. So in Marco's case, if he just wanted to show only the one part, he would turn off the polygrouping and the crease and just keep only border on, and then would only go around the border edge.
You never stop to learn.
So just another try. I wanted to throw it out there since you're sharing tricks.
For sure, man. So yeah, this is how I'm gonna create like this like more highly polished shape. But at this point, the rest is done the same way that I would do like the other versions. Like this line is just like damp standard or orb crack, I think. This one is trim hole. Trim hole for me is just BTH. It just quickly goes into like the brushes and it just creates stuff like that. Same thing for like those little guys here. And I like also to use like masks like this and simply just like extract a shape like this. Or before you extract it, you just click, control click on the surface and then you extract it. And actually it gives it like a curve when you extract it. You can also control click when the mask is inverted. It will give you different results like this here. Sometimes I just use like the standard brush. Simple things like that. That doesn't need to be complicated to look like nice little details. There's another thing I like to do. Sometimes I try to really do it for one reason only. I use IMM sometimes just to give noise also. Sometimes it takes a lot of time to actually create noise, so it's nice to have like little shortcuts here and there. And I did this new character here. It's the first time I show it ever. So it's a little exclusive thing, super nice. And it's actually a character created from... I didn't know that was worth an applause. You didn't see the character yet, okay? So it's a rocker bot from the retro 80s rocker bot. The idea was that the robot is gonna have like many parts that's exposed, and the reason why is just like it's the idea of like tattoos. It's just like the visual noise is like the tattoo on its arm, but I didn't want to do like the inside because it takes a lot of time to do like that kind of like visual noise, and it's just noise. But if you want to make sure that at least it's polished noise, one thing that I like to do is IMMs. So I bought Vitaly's kit. I tested it on this character. It's the first time I used these ones, and you're gonna notice that like everything inside of the character is like simply just like IMMs that I smashed together. Like you see, it's just like plates and stuff. This little thing here, and I just make sure that the volumes are right, that the flow of the lines is kind of like cool, and I have little like things like cables and parts and stuff, and that's it. For me, it's really just like what's more important is like the overall shape, right? But there's, you know, when I was saying about the shortcuts and everything, there's no bad shortcut. Like for me, I don't feel bad using IMMs and not doing my own, because if my goal is to create like this like picture at the end, I mean, the only thing you need to do is give credit to the guy that did the tool, and then like the rest is like you decide what you do to achieve your own goal. That's it. 10 minutes?
Yeah, 10
Jesus. I have like a ton of things to show, but I actually would like also to answer a question if anybody has some.
Spagoli? No. That one didn't work today.
Well, actually, you know what? Okay, since we are just 10 minutes, I'm just going to show you something else. Exclusive Deus Ex models that they actually let me show. So,
Yeah.
all right. So this is one of the things. I cannot show many things, but they let me show some augmented arms. So this is like, for example, something that I did for Deus Ex. This is like the kind of like polish that I end up doing for the video game industry when something has to look polished. So of course I'm not going to use shortcuts. I'm going to try to really do it like the nice, the really polished way, the longer way actually. But at least you end up with something that's more crisp and everything. Once again, it is a decimated version. But like you can imagine like that without like all the summation here, things are actually highly polished, and it took me a while to actually get to that level. There's a lot of things I wanted to show about the arms and stuff, but like one thing was about like when I create something for in the industry, I try also to actually have something that's done and that's going to have the less revision possible. So when I work on like robot parts and everything, I actually try to get like the rig done first, and to be able, and I build my character on top of the rig, so I know exactly where the joints are supposed to be and how the rotation is supposed to happen to actually get something that actually doesn't collapse on itself when it closes, and something that's actually doesn't need to be moved around afterward because it's spot on the rig. So like, for example, this is the rig of the arms of the characters, and you see like all the lateral joints like this are already put there. If it's like a ball joint, it's going to be like a little cross here, and I'm actually going to use these to actually test the motion of the model before even I go into polish. This is the blocking of the arm. Only half is done because the inside is just a symmetry of the outside. But the point is that once I'm done with like this blocking here, I actually can do some tests. So how do I use this to move this thing? It's pretty easy. You just mask everything you want to move. Or no, you mask everything you don't want to move. Then you go in the rig here. And you know what? I'm actually going to go the long way on this one. I'm actually going to move the rig also. And what I'm going to do is, you see here, I try to make sure there's a point here. If I click on it, actually the transposed line is really, really following the joint now. So I'm actually going to go here, and I'm going to make sure that it's rotate. I'm going to grab the white circle in here, and then I can actually test to see if it's actually good enough. After that, I go back to my rig, and I press 1. 1 for me is repeat last, and I just make sure the rig follows. Once this is done, I can actually move another part. So I'm going to mask this. I'm going to go in rig. I'm going to mask this. I'm going to put the action line right here and make another rotation.
That's a good trick. That deserves a clap. That's a good trick.
So yeah, I actually, you know what? Sometimes I even use that to pose characters. It's another nice way. So it's the same thing for like all the fingers and everything.
Nice one, Marco. That's a good one, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That woke him up here now.
There you go. I keep the good stuff for the end. I was sure I had more time than this, though. That's unfortunate, but hey, whatever.
You can keep going. You still got another 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
After that one, continue.
Yeah, so exactly. That's just our ad on Deus Ex. This is a police helmet that I did, and this one also has like a motion. It has 2 states. Like this is like the blocking version of it, and it has to be able to open, right? To be able to reveal the guy under. So the same way, I'm actually going to put some like, this is a cylinder I put myself. It's not even a rig, but I actually kind of like decide where the rig is gonna go. And I mean, riggers understand that. If you give them like a cylinder and you say like that's the rotation, it's simple for them. So you just do this here, and you do the same thing I use my blocking. I'm going to do this. I mask it, reverse, and then I can open it. And now you see what happens here? Actually, I made it on purpose for this to happen, but it's like the kind of like accident that you want to happen before you actually are finished polishing your character. So once you see that this actually happens there, you go back, you create a layer, you do this here, and after that, what you do, you create a second layer, and the second layer is going to be the correction, okay? Use move, push it in like this. So now you know that the helmet is actually pushed in well enough to not clip, and you get rid of the layer that is the movement, and you bake the fix that you just actually applied on the character. So next time that you actually rotate it, you see, it's done, it's clean. There's not going to be any bad, any unhappy accidents at the end of this, at the end of the line for this character here.
Who's regretting not signing up for your guys' workshop now? Huh? Anybody in here right now that's got their workshops? Oh, man.
That's good.
Right? Now you're even more excited, right?
We got even more sweet tricks for the workshop, so. So yeah, I guess for me it's like the quickest and coolest trick I wanted to show. So I don't know if some of you guys have any questions.
Any questions out there?
Anything.
I don't have a Twitter question right now. You got a couple more minutes if you want to show anything else. You got anything else you want to show, or you?
Is there
bottled
something
up?
you wanted to show?
No.
No?
Cedric says I'm good.
Can we
win.
make just like an awkward
Oh,
moment?
you got
for
a floor
lessons?
question. You got a floor question. Hot floor.
Nice.
So the proxy rigs that you showed, is that something that you made, or is that something that was like given to you by the animation team, or did you guys collaborate on where the joints were going to be, or did you know beforehand? Because that seems like a really helpful thing.
The blue thing here, like the rig.
The whole
Yeah.
thing. Whoa.
That
whole
what it
thing.
is that it's in Max. They give you, well, because we use Max at work. They give you like a rig, and every rig you can just like create a box and put it on the bone, and it's just gonna actually, you make sure that it's like the same size, but like the orientation is gonna be like the same as the bone, right? So you put like a little box for like the volume of the arm, and then you put a little cylinder for the rotation, and you put it just in a ZBrush here, and then you have actually this thing that's actually pretty helpful.
Small note, you can actually do that with Z-spheres too.
Yeah.
Boom.
More to learn.
Boom. Maybe it's a trivia question. I don't know. Floor question now.
Hey, it's not so much as a question as just a big thank you for putting the tutorial or like all your breakdowns on that guide. That takes a lot of time, I know.
I'm really happy,
And
man.
That is awesome. So, yeah, it's really appreciated, man. That's great. It's great to give back like that. It's awesome.
Yeah. I'm really, really happy that you actually like it, because for me, it's some things in my head, it seems like things are obvious. So when I did the tutorial, I was like, oh, no, everybody knows that. Like, there's nothing there. There's nothing. It's like just me showing up, hey, I know how to do stuff, right? But I ended up having like a good response, and I'm super happy of that. It makes me want to share like even more, so it's a good thing. It's a good community thing to do, and it's really uplifting and helpful for everyone, I think, and for myself.
So here's a digital question, and then that's it for the questions. We got to get them to the back with Louis. Could you show any of your custom IMM brushes? They just want to see how many do you have. Do you have a custom IMM brush?
My
or are you just
custom
using
IMM
Vitalis?
brushes? Yeah, I actually, well, normally I have to load them, so I go in here, and I think I got like Vitalis stuff right here. It's I think I use like almost just like Vitalis stuff, because there's like so much things in there. Sometimes I create like my own when I want something really, really specific, but like most of the time I just end up like grabbing this, let's say like, this is the old Kid Bash, and I just like have it here. And I actually have this all in the multi-IMM menu, right? And actually, you know what? I think it's Fred who actually created that with the brushes, so I'm going to give credit to Fred Daou, because credits are due. So he's a good guy to take tools from someone else and to one-upping them just a little bit and to steal credits. Good job. Just breaking your balls, man. So no, yeah, this is like the quickest way actually to use the IMMs, just like by placing them and having them like categorize and stuff. It's super helpful.
Awesome.
I should have said that instead of like saying the other thing. So sorry, Fred.
All right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, Marco and Cedric from Chaos Mesu.